Hey everybody, welcome to the Quick Draw. With me is my co-host John. I'm Mike, the owner of Young Guns. We are happy to have you guys here today. And we also have a very special guest all the way from the true north, still strong and free. And that's not just a euphemism for where he's from, Canada, but also the name of his hot new show that he just started last week. Join me in welcoming at True Canuck. Are we just gonna? Can we just call you TC? Because I feel like calling you Canuck every 5 minutes is just gonna be really offensive to some people.
Yeah.
Not that I mind offending people, if anyone watches the show knows, but we'll just call you TC.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
Okay, cool. No problem. No problem. Sounds good.
I was gonna say.
Well, thanks for coming on. I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
Okay. Firstly, okay. I guess we're not talking the name, but I was gonna say I was gonna say, I think you may very well be the first Black Canadian I've ever run across.
I was surprised that I was actually surprised they existed. I was like, "There's Black people in Canada. Oh my god!"
I didn't.
I mean, yeah.
Do you get a lot? Do you get a lot of stares though, TC? Like,
No, not really. Not really. I mean,
okay.
Montreal is very multi-ethnic. So
okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Canada is very. Of course, the majority is white, but it's a multi-ethnic country. So you'll meet Black people all across the country. Actually, as a matter of fact, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, he's half Canadian.
Now, out of curiosity,
Wait, is that a thing? You can't be half Canadian. That's not like it's not like an ethnicity. Is that like half moose? Is that how that works?
Okay, well, let me explain. Because his dad, Rocky Johnson is from Halifax, Nova Scotia. So he has dual American Canadian.
Well, I was going to say that. Well, first of all, you look very African, actually.
Oh, really? Actually, it's funny because I
was just saying it's very French, but
yeah, that.
Well, yeah. Well, I get that a lot, but so I was born and raised in Canada, and
Okay.
I was born in Calgary, grew up in Montreal, but I'm actually French Canadian in that my parents immigrated to Canada from France.
Ironically, given that you're French Canadian, because I think you have a slight accent, I think. So that being the case, you could actually pass for being from almost any West African country you wanted. I mean, because I grew up around a lot of Africans because my dad is from East Africa, but
right.
But yeah, I was gonna say because I was like, you have a bit of an accent. It sounds French-ish, and I was like, okay, so basically you could pass for being like Liberian. I mean,
that's the thing. I mean, because I have dual French Canadian citizenship, so when I tell, like a lot of people think that I'm from Senegal.
Yeah.
Right? So when I tell from Senegal, so when I tell them no, I'm Canadian and my family's from France, they're like, what? Really?
Right.
I mean.
See, that's what I would have guessed. I thought you were maybe like a French immigrant to Canada, but then you mentioned before we started the show that you're from Calgary, right? Originally.
Calgary, yeah.
So you mentioned that's a very conservative part of Canada.
Yeah, it's very.
Oh, that's ironic.
Is it a socially conservative, fiscally conservative, and how does that jive with like American conservatism? Because I know, because we talk about conservatism in the United States, and I think a lot of Americans don't realize that if you say conservative like anywhere else in the world, it really means liberal. It's like your conservatives are actually kind of like our centrists.
Right. Well, I would say in Alberta, it depends where you are. I mean, for example, the city I was born in, Calgary, I would say it's very fiscally conservative, but that's where I guess that's where all the businesses are. I mean, it's a very business-oriented city, and you'll have Edmonton, which is more liberal, and you have the Bible Belt.
Oh, you have one of those too. Oh, you have a Bible Belt too? You have one of those too?
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah,
Yes,
we got one of those here. I was gonna say we have a Bible Belt, and I was gonna say that it's like, oh, there's another one there. Like that's awesome. They have those in more than one place.
You said Edmonton was the Bible Belt?
Red Deer.
Red Deer. Actually, that's where my best friend met his wife.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my best friend in college. He found a job up in Canada and up in Red Deer, and he actually met his wife in church. So,
oh, great, cool. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, Red Deer is very nice. It's a nice community. Really.
It's pretty rural, right?
Yeah, but it's growing. I mean, it's grown over the years. So, but,
it's like the south of Canada.
No, well, no, not really.
No?
Well, I don't know. I can't really compare because I've never been to I've never visited the southern U.S. so I can't really.
We got to bring you down, man.
Yeah,
you'll love it. You will love it. Everybody's nice. Complete myth about everybody being racist. Let me just be that up front. It's people are more racist in New York. That's actually one of the funny things. Like people talk about how like racist Trump is, and they point to the things he says, and I'm like, okay, first of all, it's not because he ran as a Republican, and it's definitely not because he's conservative. It's because he's a fucking New Yorker, guys. This is the state that invented the phrase, "Yo, I'm not a racist, but."
Yeah, and again, I should point out. I know this because I was born in New York City. That's where I'm from. So like
I'm from Florida, so like all the New Yorkers and New Jerseyans come down there to
die,
piss the money away, and or die, or both. Welcome to Florida. Now go home.
But it's funny because I heard that the South is a lot more integrated than, or I guess racially integrated than the North, or like New York is very.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think the majority of American blacks live in the South. That's like a good bulk of the black population in America lives in the South. That's one of the things. Like when I moved out west, because I went to school at BYU, which is in Utah. That's like one of the first things I know that kind of struck me. I'd look around and be like, "Where are all your black people? There's no black people here.
What are black people?
I don't like this place. I don't feel at home."
And I've been places like that too. I moved to like a little small town in Kansas for like a year or so. And it was the same thing. They asked like all the questions you expect them to ask of people who'd never actually seen a black person in person. You know, like they see them on TV, but they don't know much, so they'll just ask questions. Like, you know,
see, my wife got those questions in college because she's from South America, and they'd be like some really dumb ones too, like how close is, like where in Mexico is that? And then we're just like, she's not from Mexico, guys. Or does Chile have trees?
Really? They asked that?
Yes, people asked that. Like, and I think one person thought clothes were like a novelty, like they didn't have shorts or something in South America. And I was like,
wow.
You know, I don't blame people that ask those questions. I mean, they're not asking them maliciously. It's, they just don't know.
No, when they ask those questions, what they mean, they're thinking of Venezuela. That's I think what they're thinking of.
Venezuela's a jungle.
Well, I'm saying, you know, when they think clothes are a novelty and everyone's kind of living in the streets, no, you're thinking of Venezuela. That's where people are doing it. But as far as, and I was going to say,
Nicaragua.
I'll ask a question that I'm pretty sure I know the answer to. But what's your take on Justin Trudeau? Just out of curiosity.
Yes.
Wait, does anybody like him besides middle-aged horny women? Like, seriously.
Well, seriously. Okay. Well, as you know, Justin Trudeau is our first SJW prime minister. Honestly, I think that because I've said this, I sent a tweet about this once. I said Justin Trudeau is the worst thing to happen to Canada since Pierre Trudeau. As you know, his dad was prime minister, but so I don't know. I think he's. I think a lot of people here, well, at least the ones that I've spoken to about this, and who voted for him, they have this, shall we say, virus remorse.
Really? Even the people who voted for him are regretting it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
But you know how I think of Justin Trudeau? He is the model for what an SJW thinks a white guy should be. Like, he's literally the guy who is seemingly so ashamed of being white, yet at the same time, his way of trying to placate non-white people is insulting in the extreme. And that's exactly what's expected. You know, like, remember when even India just got to the point where they're like, okay, seriously, knock it off, because when he's wearing clothes, and he's like, I'm wearing clothes to show that I love India. And they're like, dude, nobody in India wears that. Yeah. It was like, okay, no one's worn that for like a century. It's like, what? I mean, that's just the most insulting thing. But like, that's exactly the way that I think a lot of like SJW white people, not only are they, but I think that's the way they're supposed to be. Like, that's what the left expects of them, is to be ashamed to be white, but so ashamed that in trying to be good to other people, you actually insult them with everything you say and do.
Can you imagine if you had gone to if you had traveled to an African country?
Oh God!
I mean, I'm just imagining. I'm just imagining him wearing this dashiki.
They just look at him like, the fuck is this?
I'm going to refrain from commenting just so I don't get myself in trouble.
Right.
And what's funny is actually that's happened before, because it's not only white Americans have done that, black ones have done it too. Because I find that, in my experience, black Americans are totally clueless about what Africa's actually like. So, like, I mean, more so than anyone. It's amazing how clueless, more than even a lot of white Americans, I find black Americans are completely clueless about Africa writ large. And so, like, you know, because again, if you remember, it's going back a long way. It was, I think, George Foreman and Muhammad Ali, I think, the Rumble in the Jungle. It's like back in like the 60s or 70s, I think. And they did the same thing where they wore like all these like kente cloth and dashikis and all that, and everyone's wearing suits and looking at them like, the hell is this? You know, it's like, you know, so, you know,
well, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying.
Well, I was just saying.
It's all right, you two. Rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, I can do
that. Exactly.
Cachipum.
Well,
like they say in Spanish.
Yeah. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say that a few years ago, I traveled to Africa on vacation, and it was a complete and utter culture clash. I mean, first of all, the weather, it's so hot. I mean, 45 degrees Celsius. I don't know how much.
Hey. This is America, okay? None of that Celsius and metric garbage, okay?
Hey. Don't insult our metric system.
That was the one thing I hated about my classes in engineering, is spending like an entire semester learning how to do fucking conversions. Like that actually made me drop out. Like I wasn't sure if I wanted to do mechanical engineering or chemical engineering at the time I was in school. And I was like, I had done a lot of the mechanical engineering classes, so I wanted to try some chemical engineering classes just to see like I liked it better. Especially since chemical engineers get paid more. And I took the intro to the chemical engineering, and it was all unit conversions. I'm like, nope, I'm done. I've already done this. I'm not doing this again. I will take the pay cut.
Like, I love that. It's like, it's 45 degrees. How much is that in American? But no, I don't know, unless you know how to convert it. I was going to say, it's like 45 is like what? Like 80, 90?
23 is room temperature. Like, so 35 would be about 100 degrees. No, not quite.
Oh,
It'd be like 90s. I can look it up.
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah, I'm thinking.
Okay.
Let me do the Googler.
It's hot. The point is, it's hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Where in Africa
And,
did you
I
go?
was close. 95 degrees.
95 degrees.
Okay,
there you go.
So where in Africa
because
did you go?
I went to Senegal.
Okay,
And,
ironically enough.
Ironically enough. And after that, I drove to Gambia,
Okay.
and I spent so I spent 2 weeks in Senegal and in a week in Gambia, and it's funny because I have two passports, one Canadian and the other European. It's the French passport. So I traveled with the French passport, and they thought when it was my time to leave, like I was at the airport, and they wouldn't let me leave because they thought that they thought it was a fake passport. Like they thought
because they probably thought you were from there. I was like trying to get out of here now.
Yeah, exactly. Because on my passport it says
wow.
It says place of birth. It says place of birth, Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
No one would believe that.
Nationality French. Nationality French. So it was like, oh, really? Okay, no.
You're not fooling anyone, buddy. That's not gonna fly. Oh wait, he is
like you're not
legit.
Like
We're
you're not
so sorry.
And
So
you probably got a free coffee. You probably could have gotten a free coffee out of that.
well, yeah.
well, Jesus. But
Did you get the reference, DC?
Sorry?
Did you get the reference? There's a free coffee reference.
Yes,
Okay.
I did. Yes,
yeah,
I did.
Okay.
I got to talk a little bit to the Hotep Jesus. Yeah, it was really funny actually because I thought that was one of the greatest trolls I've seen in since like Michael Knowles. I mean, like that was just hilarious because because he did. The irony is you can't tell it's a troll because that's exactly what I would think the people in Starbucks would expect black people.
It's Poe's law of applied to liberalism, right? You cannot effectively parody the left without it being confused for the real thing unless you have some kind of like winky emoji or something to like indicate that, like some kind of sarcasm font that just tells people I'm joking. Like we did, TC, you read the Chick-fil-A thread that I did a couple weeks ago. Okay, you need to read that because it's entertaining and it's funny because you read through it and you're like, okay, no, he's joking. Yeah, well, here's the thing: if you read the article that I'm mocking, and then you read the thread, you can actually I did a long form version of it on Steph's website, Halsey News as well, with a few tweaks to make it a little better. So if you read it after reading their article, it's really hard to distinguish between the parody and the real article because it's almost like, I mean, right up to the part where I talk about like conversion therapy chicken, then it's clearly a joke. But
but before that point, it's really difficult to weed that out. And actually, I think that's a major issue with the left nowadays. It's getting to the point where parodying them is becoming virtually impossible. I mean, honestly, no matter what you think you're parodying, either someone has already said it and you didn't know, or someone will say it not long after. Again, I'm reminded 10 years ago, roughly, when we were all joking when they kept doing their stupid gun control things. And we talked about, what's next? Knife control? And now the UK is doing it. And I'm like,
with Cookie Monster decals.
Right.
Like,
the UK truly thinks its citizens are stupid. I honestly think that's what it is. They think their citizens are just
children. They think they're children. They think they're children.
Yeah. Cookie Monster says carrying makes you a coward. It's like, well, I guess if Cookie Monster
says, like, makes you wonder what makes you wonder what Elmo says about pedophilia.
Hopefully not what Salon says.
So now I have a question, TC. So here in America, the country's pretty divided since Trump's election between left and right, at least on social media.
Right.
And I have noticed like a lot of Canadians on both sides seem to be kind of taking interest in our politics, a lot more than we take interest in yours, anyway. Is it the same kind of division? Like, are people like hotly debating over like pro Trudeau and not Trudeau, or is it just like ew Trudeau and Trudeau?
I mean, I haven't noticed it. Honestly, it's obviously we're not as divided as Americans are when it comes to politics. Obviously,
that Canadian politeness.
Yeah, exactly.
But except in Montreal, we know this because they're French.
Right. Yeah. But
and the French are assholes.
Yeah, pretty much.
No offense.
Well, no, not taking.
I was just channeling my inner Canadian right there. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I mean, don't worry. Even my mom says that are assholes. So, don't worry.
I like her. I really do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was reminded of that line from, if you remember the movie Vertical Limits from like the late '90s, and there was that line with the one woman in it, and she's kind of being, I guess, kind of an asshole to somebody, and so she's like, so the guy's like, she's French Canadian. Like on some days she's Canadian and can be quite friendly. Obviously today she's French. But I think that's basically how that works. Because I was gonna say, I think, Canadians in general are known for being incredibly sunny people, which is ironic because Canada's cold. But
I mean, some of the I would say the stereotype of the polite Canadian is true. It's obviously true. However, I have noticed the rise of the the division on college campuses here in Canada. I mean, in the States, you have the safe spaces and all that nonsense. So I've seen it here also as well. I mean, my younger brother who's currently working on his second grad degree. I mean, he's been telling me that it's the rise of the I hate to use this term, but it's becomes so cliche, but the rise of the snowflakes.
Yep, exactly.
The snowflake mentality has taken over the college campuses.
Now, would you say that is worse in Canada than the U.S. or worse in the U.S. and like what is based on what you've observed, like in our news cycle versus your news cycle?
From what I've observed, I think it's worse in the U.S. I mean, I've seen there have been speakers that have been censored on campus or banned from or stopped, I should say, from speaking on campus.
That happened recently, didn't it? Wasn't there a lefty a Canadian professor who like played Jordan Peterson and got like chastised for it, and she was playing it as like, look guys, this is what the other side is saying, and we need to think critically about what they're saying so we can like combat it. Not like she wasn't presenting it like, look how great this guy is. She was saying like, this is the other side, let's analyze this neutrally, and they pulled her side and said that wasn't very nice.
Yeah, I mean, you're referring to Lindsay Shepherd, yes. Who recently, I don't know if you saw her video where she explains why she no longer considers or calls herself left or considers.
I did. Yeah, I did see that one.
Yeah, I mean, she's, but There's this thing where she started this. She invited uh, Faith Goldie,
Yep.
my I guess
Your
my
nemesis. Your
favorite.
She's your nemesis. You have a nemesis. He's done one episode, guys, of his show, and it's got a nemesis already. You know what would be funny is if you could have her on your show. That would be hilarious.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, she's my she's the Moriarty to my Sherlock Holmes. So
now, just so I'm clear, Faith Goldie isn't Faith Goldie a white nationalist?
Oh yeah, she's an ethno nationalist.
Okay, yeah.
They have those in Canada.
Yeah.
I would think. I seriously would have thought ethno nationalists would be like rarer than black people in Canada.
In fact, it's true, but she's she calls herself a journalist, but she's an alt-right sympathizer, even though she hasn't publicly called herself a alt-right. But anyway, Lindsay Shepherd invited her to speak at this this free speech event in the university. I forgot the name of the university, but she invited her not because she agrees with Faith Goldie. I mean, she made it clear that she doesn't agree with her with her views, but no, she invited her, and then apparently it got canceled because the university raised the security fee. It was like
now Canada has some tricky laws when it comes to free speech, right? That's my understanding is okay.
Right? Yeah, I was going to say. We're figuring out very quickly that the U.S.
on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being America, like 1 being poor Count Dacula in the UK or China, where is Canada? Where is Canada exactly? Because and why?
We're our laws are. I think we're more aligned with the UK.
Okay.
So in other words, like a 2 or a 3. It's like
pretty much.
So don't be teaching any pugs to Zig Heil is what we're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. Don't do that.
Well, I mean, like we're not as bad as Germany, where you can actually go to jail for giving the Nazi salute in public. But
well, now I want to go to Germany and just like start goose stepping everywhere. Like,
hey,
I'm a very bad person. Like when the government says don't do this, I have to do it in the most like exaggerated form possible. Like every time the British police are like, don't say mean things, guys, or we're gonna monitor your accounts. I'm just oh really? Okay.
Yeah,
come at me, bro.
Yeah.
Basically have the response of what are you going to do? Arrest me for hate speech and confiscate my toolbox? There's like honestly, the UK has become a parody of itself because honestly, at this point, all they're doing because think about it, free speech basically is non-existent. You have the fact that they've gone well past gun control. I think at this point they're trying to criminalize self-defense. I think that's really what they're trying to do. I think that's really the true goal of any of the gun control movements. All these things, that's the goal. It has nothing to do with the gun. It has nothing to do with the knife. It has to do with we don't want you to defend yourself. We want you to rely on the state to defend you.
I think you're on something. I think it's not just defending yourself physically, but it's also defending yourself verbally.
Right.
Like you are unable to establish your identity as an individual. And say, this is what I believe. This is who I am. This is what this is what I feel is right and versus wrong. And if you don't like it, well, sucks to be you. Or change my mind.
Okay. Right. What were you gonna say?
Okay. Yeah. I have an interesting anecdote to tell you about our self-defense self-defense laws here in Canada. But just getting back to the free speech thing, in Canada, we have something called the Human Rights Commission. So if you offend someone, like if you're a comedian and you tell a joke that hurts someone's feelings, well, then that person.
So like any joke.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like just about every joke in existence.
Yeah. I mean, someone can file a complaint against you with the Human Rights Commission, and if you're found guilty, then you're fined. You know, you have to pay this huge fine to be.
What are we talking, like when you say huge fine, like dollar amount?
Well,
I will compare Canadian dollars to American dollars.
Let's say it could be, I don't know, I'm throwing out a figure like $5,000 or $10,000
Canadian dollars. Holy shit! Is that a lot of money?
So
it's about $4,000. Okay, that's wow.
Yeah, that's
so how much did Count Dankula charge? He got 800 pounds.
800 pounds is roughly $1,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
that's still pretty hefty, but yeah, it was about a grand.
I've paid speeding tickets that are less than that. Like, what the hell?
Oh,
I'm not talking like, 5 miles over the speed limit. I'm talking like 20, 25 miles over the speed limit. It only cost me like $200-300 after I plead it down.
I'm telling you, honestly, if that ever happens to me, if I have to pay a fine because I hurt someone's feelings, I'm telling you, I'm going to pay the fine in loonies. Okay.
So Catherine in the live chat actually brings up a really good point. They actually use the term human rights to combat human rights.
Right. Yeah. That's what I was going to
say. So like I mentioned, I have this interesting anecdote with regards to self-defense in Canada. So in Canada, we have this strong gun control. I mean, we're allowed to own guns, but the thing is, we're not allowed to use it.
Take them outside.
No. Well, yeah. I mean, we can't carry them outside. There's no right to carry permits or anything. But we do not have the right to self-defense, to use the gun to self-defense. So if someone breaks into your home, okay, and attempts to harm you or your family, and you shoot that person, you can be charged with assault with a deadly weapon.
So like that guy in the UK who did exactly that, was arrested.
Okay, can we just address something though? Like, if you're a 70-year-old man, and what was the guy that attacked him? He was like in his 20s or 30s,
something like that.
Like, yeah, if you're in your 20s and 30s and you get the drop on a 70-year-old man, and you get your ass beat to the point where you die, I'm sorry, I don't care. This is like
you have that one.
You had like, how big of a pussy do you have to be for an 80-year-old guy who's 70 something, who's a septuagenarian? Like, how does a 70-year-old he took the guy's screwdriver and apparently stabs him with it. Like, that's like, power to that guy. He should get a medal, not a prison sentence.
No, instead, of course, the screwdriver is now a deadly weapon, which I think I remember that tweet. And again, I really had a hard time guessing whether it was parody or not, because if someone had done it as a parody, it would have been hard to tell. We remember that one, I think it was like Scotland Yard put it up, and it said, these confiscated like weapons off this person, and these have been taken off the street and disposed of. And it was like a picture of like a pair of scissors and a screwdriver,
a box cutter,
and it's like, wait, have we really reached this point where they're actually saying how proud they are of removing these deadly weapons from the street, and they're tools? Tools. And I'm like, are you serious? I'm telling you.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry to interrupt. I think my battery's dead, so I'm just switching over to my phone. 1 second.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay.
I live again.
I was gonna say, did you? I think
Okay.
we got it right.
All right.
Did
Okay,
your
cool.
computer die, TC?
Huh?
Did your computer die? Is that what happened?
Yeah, it's
We need that. What we need is that little that graphic of the Indian head that comes on, and then we can just play like elevator music.
Right. Yep,
We're having technical difficulties. Dun, 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 dun.
Get that.
So I'm
so I'm
just
just
gonna
gonna switch one second.
Okay.
We did anticipate this. We actually did anticipate this happening. So thankfully, True Canuck had a backup.
The batteries don't last forever, but
okay.
When it says 45 minutes, that's not 45 minutes with the camera and a microphone operating.
No.
Yeah. No.
All right. So now there's some pretty on Twitter. I would say there's some pretty prominent Canadian voices. It seems like on the right.
Right.
You guys gonna just come down and join us? I mean, let's just get it over with and get you guys like over here.
Yeah, I mean,
come on. You clearly don't fit in over there. I mean, let's be honest here.
And if you've got guns, you'll actually be able to use them.
Yeah.
I mean, right now we have, of course, we have Steph McWilliams from Aussie News, and we have Roaming Millennial, a fellow Montrealer, and we have Gavin McGuinness, and
I'm forgetting about him.
Wait, he's Canadian?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Canadian.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, no, he did a video actually recently about like things Canadians don't get about the U.S. Like it was actually hilarious. Like just like it was just I forget what all was in it. I'll have to watch it again, but it was pretty funny. Just
So I'm on to something when we say we just need to annex Canada.
Right.
We might let's just like go from the northern border to the Arctic Circle. Let's just take it all. Except Quebec, and we'll just we'll put like a little wall around Quebec, and then we'll throw all the Trudeaus and the assholes in there.
And Toronto, you don't need Toronto. I mean, no.
Is it really that bad? I was gonna say I've only been there once, but that was like 20 years ago. Not to mention like Toronto reminds me a lot of New York, actually. At least just physically, not the people in it necessarily. I was gonna say
so. But that was a good point, because it seems like there's a lot of Canadians that like American politics. Do Canadians in general, do they like America? Do they not like America? Are they just kind of meh? Because it seems like the media kind of portrays Canadians as like looking their nose down at us.
No,
especially the left-wing ones.
Yeah, I mean this is the view of I think Canadians like America, but they don't like its leaders. I mean, they don't.
That feeling's mutual.
Yeah. there you go. I mean, right now, so Canadians love. They loved Clinton, hated Bush, George W. They loved Obama.
I'm noticing the trend here.
They loved Obama. They hate Trump. So it's
So it's almost like they don't like the cowboy and ugly American stereotypes that we sometimes put into office.
Yeah, no, they don't. But
okay, you know what? When they have like some big gay lumberjack be their president or prime minister or whatever you guys do.
Right.
Like then they can judge us, okay?
Right.
Right. I was gonna say that.
But let me ask you,
it's okay.
But let me ask you guys. Okay, what do Americans think of
Canada?
Not only Canada, but Justin Trudeau.
I think we should open that one up to the live chat, because I'm just going to say most people, at least my opinion of Canada is I like my Canadians, but it's America's hat.
Okay, I'll just say two separate questions. Most Americans could tell you who Canada's leaders are. Justin Trudeau is
Okay.
probably the first one in a generation that anyone noticed. And then as
Right.
far as Canada
Because he's pretty.
itself, right. As far as Canada itself, I got to be honest,
Okay.
that seems to be a bit of a mixed bag. But for the most part, I think most Americans, tend to think of Canada as like kind of it's frozen snowy wasteland with mounties, lots of moose, and like people that say a lot.
Lumberjacks. Yeah, I think what it is a lot of what happens in Canada doesn't really affect us,
Right.
whereas the other way around, like a lot of what we do ends up impacting Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I think
Yeah,
most
sure.
Americans will get the only time they will educate themselves on Canadian politics is, for example, during the healthcare debate, because Canada's gets
Right.
touted as like, look at our healthcare, guys. You should be like us. Our healthcare is so good, okay? Eh?
no,
And it's like,
no, you don't.
it's like, well, here's the problem with your healthcare argument in Canada. One,
Right.
you have a lot less people.
Yeah.
Two, our military takes care of you.
Right.
Yeah,
So
pretty much.
the
Yeah.
money you save in military spending, you get to spend on amazing government healthcare.
And yet,
Right.
some
If
of
we
them
decided
debating-
to say, you know what, we're not going to foot the bill anymore in the UN, and we're not going to spend as much money to police the world, and Canada's got to pick up some of the slack. I bet your healthcare goes downhill like real quick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is the biggest misconception Americans, I believe Americans have about our healthcare. Well, first of all, it's not free. It's not free. We pay for it through taxes.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, this,
yes.
and also,
Just kind of my point
Our
about the whole
healthcare-
military spending.
you're right. But our healthcare system falls under provincial jurisdiction, not federal.
Ah.
So it's so the federal government gives money to the provinces for healthcare.
Okay, so it's almost like federalism the way it should work here. Like
right. We have
American
like
federalism would be okay. I think most Americans would be okay if their individual state did some kind of
Right.
healthcare system,
Right.
like Massachusetts did, where I think it supposedly worked. Like Romney's system worked, but
right.
then you'd have 50 different healthcare systems, government healthcare systems, if every state decided
Right.
to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we have asymmetrical. We have an asymmetrical system where you have some services that fall under provincial jurisdiction and others on federal jurisdiction.
Okay, that's interesting. So what determines that? Like what is because for us, in theory, again, this is assuming we actually followed the Constitution, which
Right.
we don't.
Mhm.
The understanding is the states pretty much are supposed to take care of everything. The
Right.
federal government's only really supposed to handle national defense and making sure the states get along, interstate commerce, laws that when you cross state lines, that sort of thing.
Right, right.
But beyond that, it's not theoretically supposed to be the federal government. We've kind of abused the Commerce Clause. We've molested it a little too much.
Right,
So
right.
what's the delineation in Canadian politics? Like what determines whether it's federal or provincial?
I don't know what determines it. Like for example, immigration falls under federal, of course. Like any other country. But however, Quebec has its own immigration system. I mean, it's the only province in Canada that deals with its own immigration. I mean, we have a
Right, you mentioned that because you have Canadian citizenship and French Canadian citizenship, correct?
well, no, well, French Canadian in that my family's from France, so I've
Okay.
dual French Canadian citizenship, and also so just quickly, I just want to with regards to our healthcare system, we do have I get like on paper we do have universal healthcare. However, we do have every province has its own private insurance. We have they have their own private hospitals and private clinics. So technically, we have a quasi two-tiered healthcare system.
So your system actually isn't too different from ours, really, because the only difference is, as yet, we don't have a great deal of federal incursion into it. There's Medicare,
other than Obamacare.
Let's just be realistic. There's something I understand. See, people don't always understand how Medicare and Medicaid work. There is a reason. See, again, universal health care always works pretty much in the same fashion.
Okay.
Just because everyone is covered under insurance doesn't necessarily mean that they'll actually get care. Okay, like my mom has Medicare, but a lot of doctors won't take it for the obvious reason that the reimbursement rate for services rendered under Medicare is like 25%. So the thing is that whatever the hospital or whatever practitioner charges, Medicare will only pay them a quarter of that amount. So most doctors will say, well, geez, if I know I'm going to get underpaid, what'll usually happen is if they continue to take Medicare and Medicaid patients, they will simply charge the people who pay their own way a lot more. Or they just won't take people who do Medicare and Medicaid at all, which is what a lot of practitioners do. Is as long as they've got the option not to, then they just won't. Now, what I figure with universal healthcare, the next step is they're just going to force practitioners to take Medicare and Medicaid patients because for the obvious reason that they want this to work, and it won't work if doctors have the option to not take it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the French system, where it's they have a two-tiered healthcare system. So it's if you can afford private to go private, you go private. If you can't afford, then you go public.
That's the Chilean system as well.
Right. And for doctors, before they can go private or work in the private sector, they have to spend a specific amount of time in the public sector. You know what I mean? So
that's interesting.
Again, if you were doing something like that at the state level, I mean, I wouldn't want to live in that state because the taxes would probably be atrocious.
Yeah,
but
no kidding.
Right.
I mean, as egalitarian systems go, it's not bad if it's done locally. Because if it's done locally, you have less likelihood of having corruption. You have less likelihood of poor quality. You have less likelihood of like what happened in the UK, where they just starve you to death because they decide you are unfit to live.
Although I can tell you now that the cost of that would skyrocket fast, and I can tell you exactly why. The reason why I think the cost of that would jump quickly is because if doctors have to spend a certain amount of time in the public healthcare in order to get into the private, what will likely, at least what I think will likely happen, I almost feel like
you're right, John. I can tell you you're right. I can actually prove it to you mathematically.
I was going to say that what will end up happening, the cost of medical school will end up getting charged to the state. Like people will start saying, well, if you're going to make the public sector take the doctors, then the doctors should be paid by the state to go through school.
No, we actually studied this in my econ course that I just took. So if you have a supply and demand curve, right? Where they intersect, that's your equilibrium price and your equilibrium quantity. That's where all needs are satisfied and met, right? If you insert the government, right? The government can do one of two things. It can demand more of a service, or it can expropriate what it wants. And it actually turns out what's interesting is it doesn't matter. If the government demands more of a service, then what ends up happening is, and it's willing to pay, it has an inelastic demand. So it's willing to pay whatever price the market is willing to bear. But what ends up happening is your quantity shifts to the left, which means your price goes up.
Right.
It's the exact same effect if the government comes in and like steals the labor or steals the good whatever it is that it wants to buy. It's the exact same effect economically. The only difference is the political impact of the people that get their land stolen or end up paying the higher price. So yes, you're absolutely right. In that situation, it does cause costs to go up. And some people will point to it and say, well, you know, we did this and our costs didn't go up. It's like, well, they did. You either have them in the form of higher prices for the private sector that you don't notice because you have the option of going to the free, right? So if you have the private tier and the public tier, well, the price went up. You just didn't notice because you were going to the public tier anyway. But there would be a quantity of people that were pushed from the private sector to the public sector.
Plus, I guarantee you, if you
have rationing, which is the other cost.
Right. Plus, if I know how government tends to be on this, the doctors, especially in the U.S., God forbid you do this in the U.S., you have a new problem that gets thrown into the mix, which is public sector unions. I guarantee you what happens. They just negotiate massive amounts of pay and benefits for doctors. No doctor would be in their right mind would want to go into the private sector at that point.
It would be for nurses because you already have like nurses unions. And
the taxes that you end up paying to sustain the whole thing would just exponentially increase, because at that point, no doctor in their right mind would want to be in the private sector. The public sector pays more. Why go into the private? At that point, it's all sustained by tax dollars, at which point it's just a matter of time before it all implodes. So that system is incredibly vulnerable.
Now, TC, you mentioned that a lot of Canadians don't seem to really like Trump. Considering that American politics, while it kind of can impact Canada, especially when it comes to like wars, what is it they don't like about him? Like, especially compared to Trudeau, who talks down the limit. Like they both kind of, if you think about it, they're both kind of objectify women and mistreat women. They're both disrespectful in their own way. You can make arguments as to who is more disrespectful. I would probably argue Trump is. But I mean, what is it about Trump? And you mentioned Bush too that they don't like.
I don't know. I guess with what they didn't like about George W. was the cowboy mentality. You know, I mean, they didn't like. There was a strong anti-Iraq war vibe in Canada. So yeah.
But I mean, didn't Canada help provide? I mean, wasn't Canada kind of on board when they all thought there were chemical weapons there? Which
Afghanistan.
There were.
Afghanistan. Yeah.
Afghanistan,
No.
okay.
We sent troops to Afghanistan, and but we didn't go to Iraq. With Trump, it's more of I guess what most Canadians, not all, but most Canadians don't like about Trump is this woe-hated, the self-aggrandizement, I guess he represents the negative stereotype of the ugly. It's like the ugly American in power. You know what I mean?
I suppose, like, ironically enough,
everything negative. Sorry, go ahead.
I suppose, ironically enough, a lot of the stuff Canadians don't like about Trump are the same things that generally I don't like about him. I was going to say, honestly, the thing is that there are things about him to like, and actually, the other bit of nuance to it is that some of the things about him that we don't like are, however, useful when used correctly. And there are things I do like when they're like Ben Shapiro will always say. Everybody likes the fact that he punches back. Like every time he's attacked, he punches back. The only problem is sometimes he punches the right target, sometimes he punches a puppy.
Right.
The thing is,
sometimes he punches himself in the nuts. Like
right, exactly. Right. So he's indiscriminate about his swinging.
Like I followed I follow American politics and I followed the Republican primaries.
Right.
And I.
Wait. Before we got to ask this question: if you could vote in the Republican primaries, who would you have voted for? And we're not going to Shania Twain you, so don't worry.
No, well, hey, she's hot. She's still hot. I mean, hey. But
I honestly wonder why people got so upset with her opinion. It's like, first of all, why are we asking a non-political? Like, I'm asking you because we're talking politics. Like, this is something we like to talk about. It makes sense to ask you this question. Why the hell would you ask a Canadian country singer? So, would you have voted for Trump?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't because I'm Canadian. So that's a really dumb question. Moving on.
Right.
But sorry, back to the original question. If you could vote in the Republican primaries, who would you vote for and why?
Okay. Well, I had two picks. Okay, my first pick was Rand Paul.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Friends.
Excuse me.
Chris Christie, I would have ended this broadcast here and now. Like, we're done.
Yeah, exactly.
Cut. That's a wrap. Never coming back on the show.
Yeah, I'm barred. You blocked me on Twitter. I like
friends on you.
I like Rand Paul because he represented my libertarian side. You know,
he represents the same libertarian side of politics.
Right.
Not the actual libertarian side of politics.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's like, okay, you have Ron Paul. I think Ron is more of a small L libertarian, and Rand is more of a big L libertarian, if you know what I mean. He's
like
more,
the party, consummate party.
Yeah. Right.
I think the only reason Rand Paul is not a big L libertarian is because he knows that party has just gone so far over a cliff that there's no bringing it back to actual libertarianism.
Well, I think that's obvious. Look who they nominated, and look who they could have nominated. They had Austin Peterson. I would have, if Austin Peterson had won the nomination for the Libertarian Party, I'd have voted for him.
Yeah. I'd have voted for him in a heartbeat.
They nominated Gary Johnson. I swear the guy was stoned the entire cycle. He had to be.
You know what? Since you've been drunk on this show, I don't think you get to judge.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not running for office. I'm not running for office, so that doesn't count. Okay.
I'm never letting him hear the end of this, by the way.
No, but I'm not running for office, so I can be drunk if I want to be.
My second choice was Ted Cruz.
All right.
We're good. I'm like biting my nails here. What's he gonna say next?
Not just because he was born in my hometown of Calgary, but he I think he represents
Q birther nonsense. In our DMs, like, that's right. See, even the Canadian gets it. He wasn't eligible for the presidency.
Again, why we should annex Canada? Then they can run.
Yeah, there you go. No, but
that should have been Ted Cruz's response. He's like, you know what? Problem solved. I'll just annex Canada if you vote for me, and then you don't have to worry about it.
There you go. But no, I mean he represented the my constitutional conservative side. I think he's I think he's.
He was my first choice. He was my first choice for a long time. I kind of lost respect for him when he bent the knee to Trump. I get why he did it, and I'm not upset so much that he did bend the knee.
Yeah.
I'm upset. That was it. I did not like the whole bend. Well, I'm still principled, guys. Like, I'm still like, I'm not really bending the knee. He just spun it in a really, really shady, dishonest way. Honestly, if he just been upfront and said, guys, look, I know I said I'd stand by my principles. I know I said I'd never bend on this, but here's the thing. I'm actually getting a lot of pressure, not just from my party, but this time from my constituents who are pissed at me for standing up for the guy they think should be president. So I'm not saying I'm going to support the guy, but I'm not going to take any. I'm not going to take any more shots at him. So I'm stepping out of the race. You guys vote your conscience, do what you got to do, but just keep in mind that it's him or Hillary at this point. So,
had he said,
if he had said that, I would have said, okay, I'm still voting third party, but I can still respect Cruz. I could still see him as an honorable man, because sometimes you are in that situation. Like I'm a bit of a pragmatist when it comes to politics. I'm also an idealist. I want us to look for the best solutions, but then when we can't attain the best because for whatever reason there's some obstacle in the way, okay, I'm willing to settle for second best or third best or fourth best. But only after I've exhausted every possible option to get the first and second best. Like I think part of the problem in politics in America is we say, oh, we can never attain this ideal, so let's settle for like this shitstorm at the bottom of the barrel. Guys, there's a whole spectrum in between. We have options. Let's not there were lots settle for the bottom of the barrel here, please.
And again, I'm still wondering.
Catherine, you take that back, because when I run for office, I'm going to be completely honest. Catherine in the live chat says, "Honesty is the death of a political career." Look,
depends on what you're honest about.
That's the thing. I don't think honesty is the death of the political career, because Trump was supposedly honest. I mean, we know he isn't, but he told it like it is, and people liked that. And honestly, if I was going to run for office, if I was going to run for president, there's a lot that Trump did that I don't think he did very well that I would have done. I absolutely would have, believe in punching back. Like I absolutely think, you shouldn't just sit there and like that's one of the things I hate about Marco Rubio is he tries to play footsie with the left because he tries to be the better person. No, look, be a better person first, and then when they're assholes to you, punch them in the goddamn nuts. Punch them in the goddamn throat. Like, just knock them down. And don't stop punching them until they say uncle. And then you say, have you had enough? Okay, cool. We can be, are you going to play nice? Yeah? Okay, we can be friends now. Then you can play nice with them. But pummel them first. Toss them first. I do appreciate that, Catherine.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm kind of in the middle when it comes to Trump. Like Ben Shapiro, I praise him when he does something good, and I criticize him when he does something not so good. I mean, right now, I agree with the good things he's done. Of course, you have the tax cuts, moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
Yep.
The deregulation. So,
I think the one criticism I have of him, apart from his neurotic tweeting, is tariffs. I would have said, look, buddy, if you want to bring manufacturing, if you want to bring jobs back to America, I do think the way he did tariffs was pretty intelligent, as I understand it, because he gave people he gave countries the ability to escape the tariff by not cheating.
Right.
And I also kind of would support tariffs against countries that don't have the same economic freedom as I do. If you're going to do tariffs, I think it should be based on some sort of economic index.
Point of leverage.
Economic freedom index.
Which is exactly how
you're China, you get tariffed the shit out of. If you're Mexico, you don't get tariffed that bad because there's some economic freedom there. If you're Chile, you don't get you get free trade because they're about as free as we are. But there's remarkably little that he's done. People talk about Trump's destroying this country, and I'm like, what has he done?
No,
like
really.
that,
yeah, exactly.
Devastating. No, nothing.
I was
on a lot of life is not bad. So
it's like this. The stuff that he does personally generally just blows up in his face. Anyway. The stuff that he lets, because he actually appointed some good people. Like I said, his SecDef choice, I love. I love Mattis. Mattis is awesome. But like I said, I will never forget James Mattis for that, for a couple of things. I still love that interview where, they asked him, is there anything that, that you're afraid of? Is there anything that keeps you up at night? And he's like, nothing. I keep other people awake at night.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear from a Secretary of Defense, is that right there. I'm not afraid of anything. I make other people afraid. But, but the stuff Trump tries to do himself, that's where he ends up screwing up usually, because he's not good at this. Like, he's good at appointing people as long as he stays out of their way, which he seems to never do. But sometimes his way of doing it.
I wonder if there's a bit of ego in that. I honestly wonder if he gets.
Oh, of course.
He feels like he has to get involved so he can say, "See, I did that. I had something to do to that." Right. Whereas if he lets them do their thing, in his mind, like in his mind, he's like, it's like it's not enough to appoint the right people, which honestly is a remarkable talent. Like being able to identify talented people who can get the job done, and then having the self-restraint to stay out of their way or empower them. Like that's a leadership quality, and very few people have it. But in his mind, he's gonna be like, no, I got to stick my finger in this pie so I can say that like I had something to do with it. See, it wasn't just this guy that appointed. I did it too.
Right, and the other thing is that there are some things Trump that
everyone.
There are some things that Trump's brash and unorthodox way of doing things actually helps, because I guarantee you, one thing I loved was the way he treated the UN when he moved the embassy. No other person that was on that Republican stage would have done it the way he did it, but someone had to do it. Someone had to say it the way he said it, which was that, look, UN, we pay your bills, we pay them for a reason. And when you don't do what we pay you for, maybe it's time we stop paying you. And that's exactly what he told them. Your job basically is to do what we tell you as long as we're paying you. We pay you to spread our values. And again, that means when you stop spreading our values, we're no longer interested in paying you.
To be fair, the UN is very successful at spreading our values if our values are genocide and rape. So they're really good at that thing, guys. Everything else, not so much.
Yeah, not so much. So,
Anyway, so we'll end on that note. TC, thanks for coming by. So now, where can people
my pleasure.
They can follow you at True Canuck 1. Is that the handle, if I remember correctly?
It's True_Canuck 1.
I always forget the underscores.
And
it's like when I'm coding and I forget the semicolon.
Yeah. and on YouTube, just True Canuck. And we're
so it's got an up and coming podcast, guys. Be sure to check them out. What is it? The True North,
Strong and Free.
Yeah, Strong and Free. I told you I was going to screw it up, dude. So make sure to subscribe to his channel. Make sure to give him lots of love and support, guys. We need as many conservative voices on social media as possible. TC is a great one to have in your corner. We definitely have had some really good exchanges online, and I think here tonight. So thanks again for coming down to the show. We'll definitely have you back on.
Well, thank you for having me, guys. Yeah, it was,
it was our pleasure.
Absolutely. We'll have you again. Hopefully not in like the internet cafe that you're in right now.
yeah. I'm at Tim Hortons right now, so. Tim Hortons right now, so.
Yeah, see the internet cafe. Yeah. That.
yeah.
Make sure you check.
Double.
Go ahead. There you go. Make sure you check them out, guys, and join us next week. We're going to be talking to we're going to have Eric Schaefer back on again, and we're going to talk about natural laws and natural rights, which is actually a kind of a nice segue after talking about human rights in Canada. So you guys have a great weekend and have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Have a good night.